Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharp and I will be your host for today. Well, it is January 2023 and we were kicking off the year right, getting right back on that horse, so as to speak. Had a great holiday, I'm sure, packed with all sorts of fun and festivities, but it's back to work here on the National Leadership Briefing and we're looking forward to serving you on the road ahead. Of course, remembering that we are here because we want to advance the things that we believe in into society, culture, politics, and government. And here on the National Leadership Briefing, we're here to serve that purpose in your life locally. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the agenda first here today, give you an idea as to some of the things that we're going to be covering, and then we're going to jump right into it because we've got a lot to go over. First of all, we're going to do an overview of the National Leadership Briefing and some of the ground that we've covered and the way we've been operating over the course of these last 4 years. The reason why I want to do that is because we're going to be making some changes to the format and to the presentation style of the National Leadership Briefing on the road ahead. And I want you to see where we are before I move you to where we're going, so that you have a clear understanding of that. I'm also going to be presenting to you the National Leadership Briefing essential training videos in a slightly different format as well. And of course, the 4-pillar story. So if you're not familiar with those things, because you're brand new to the briefing, stick around. We're going to explain that to you, and you'll very quickly be brought up to speed with the way we've set these things up on our website for you to review. We're also going to take a look at the terrain on the road ahead of us. And I want to give you a snapshot of what I see as some priorities that we've got to keep in mind on the road ahead as people of faith, part of a community or a church family, navigating the complexities of what is coming at us. So keep in mind, we're looking at this through the lens of a person of faith within a community of believers needing to address things that are coming at them, whether at us, whether we're their opportunities or whether they're threats. However they're coming at us, we need to respond appropriately as who we truly are. So I'm going to be presenting you with some additional information and some tools and resources there. I'm also going to be introducing you to a brand new resource partner that we're looking forward to working with on the road ahead as well. And this is someone who I think that you're going to find very, very helpful if you are looking for additional tools or arrows in your quiver, so as to speak. But going to be taking a look at a brand new resource partner. And then finally, I'm going to be reminding you about an existing resource partner that perhaps you forgot that we had. But I'm telling you, this particular resource is going to be much needed on the road ahead. This is, as a matter of fact, with the changes that are happening on the political and governmental landscape in our nation, if you don't already have this resource partner or have a relationship or an understanding as to who they are and what they do, then I think you're going to be hobbled somewhat, and I think you're going to find it's going to be a lot more difficult. So stick around right to the end, because that's going to be probably one of the best segments of today. Actually, they're all good. They're all good today, but that's probably going to be one of the best ones. So stick around right to the end. I'm looking forward to serving you until that time, which is exactly 1 hour from the time we start. We're always going to respect your time. We're always going to honor that top of the hour, get you back out at the top of the hour. But in the meantime, please remember, focus on what we're looking at, internalize, take it home with you. And when you get those post-briefing notes in your mailbox later, that's if you're registered for the briefing, remember, you're going to get a video of the briefing. You're going to get all the resources that we're talking about, all the links that we refer to, all the templates that we present. You're going to find it all delivered right to your inbox. Just remember, make sure you use the tools, because that's why we present them. As much as you might think, well, it's kind of fun hanging out for an hour with Doug once a month, or maybe you don't, but it's kind of fun. It's not about entertainment. We're here to work. We're here to get a job done. And that is, again, to advance the things that we believe in into the spheres of society that we live. Okay, hope that's helpful to describe what we're going to be accomplishing today. I'm looking forward to serving you on the road ahead and over the next hour. Please enjoy, and we'll talk to you right after this brief message. We'll get started. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number three, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number four, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. That is good enough for us. That should be good enough for our elected representatives. Okay, let's get started. Here we are 4 years later. We started the National Leadership Briefing 4 years ago. Want to go over a bit of just do a review with you as to our original goals and objectives, the things that we wanted to accomplish when we first started the National Leadership Briefing and over the years since. Wanted to give you an idea as to where we're at, because before we transition over the course of this next year, I want you to know where we're coming from and where we're going to. So the National Leadership Briefing, we meet 1 hour once a month, always on the same day, the first Friday of every month. We always meet and start at 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's 10 a.m. Pacific. And we always go for only 1 hour. We respect the time of everyone on the call. And we make sure that when you come here, you can be guaranteed that we're going to only do what we commit to doing. So we're only going to, if it's 1 hour, it's 1 hour. If we're going to cover certain things, we're going to cover certain things. But all of our focus as we come together is always going to be to rally around the things that we believe in, specific things that we believe in, and find ways together to advance these things into society, culture, politics, and government. So what happened was 4 years ago, we did a survey that started out looking at what were the things that were most important to us in the faith communities of Canada. We looked at all of the people that we were serving and we said, what's important to you locally in your community? What's important to you in your church? And what's important to you in your family? And we took all of the survey results back and we came up with 4 very specific things that we learned about the people that we serve 4 years ago. First of all, we learned that as parents, the authority that they had to raise their children the way they wanted was of paramount importance to them. It was the most important thing that they told us to focus on. That was 4 years ago, and it hasn't changed since. The second thing that they told us was that the right of belief and freedom of religion that we enjoy as Canadians must be respected and defended by the people that we place in our legislatures and in the House of Commons and Senate. We wanted our elected representatives to be mindful of the fact that there's value in our right of belief. There's value in the way we exercise and walk out our religious freedom in our nations as people of faith. And so we said that's another good thing that we all agree on. That's the second pillar. The third pillar that we agreed on was that the laws and policies that are designed by legislative bodies and by the House of Commons, we wanted to make sure that the vulnerable people that were in our communities, that lived among us in our communities, that they were protected and kept safe from all of the decisions that were made at that level by government. And so if we come together and when we see a politician or someone who's an elected official at any time or a candidate that wants to run, we make sure they know that that's of paramount importance to us as well, that the laws and policies provide for the safety and security of the citizen, especially that vulnerable person that lives among us in our communities. And finally, we were all concerned about the future of our nation and the future of our families and the children that we were raising in our communities and in our families. And we saw that the government was piling a massive amount of debt upon their backs, spending money that we don't have on things that we didn't necessarily need or could afford as a society. and that burden of debt would actually be carried by our children, and in essence, turning them into bond servants of civil government. They would become slaves because they'd have that burden of excess taxation placed on them as they grew up in society to pay for the things that we were spending money on today. So we said, now, what, fiscal responsibility is something really important to us. So on the National Leadership Briefing, we come together once a month and we look out on the horizon. We've got this way that we look out on the horizon for opportunities, like political party opportunities, or maybe there's a piece of legislation that's going through the House of Commons. There are opportunities for us to all come together, rally around that principle, and speak with a combined voice and say loudly to our elected representatives or our school board trustees or whoever it is at whatever level of government. But we just have more of us saying what we all agree to be important: parental authority, right of belief, freedom of religion, protecting the vulnerable, and lifting that burden of debt off the backs of our children. So that was pretty straightforward. We set aside all the things that we differ on, the things that we don't agree on, just for that 1 hour once a month, and just see what's possible. What's possible. Now, here's the thing that not a lot of people know about the National Leadership Briefing is that when you start presenting people with the possibilities, or identifying for them the threats, and then giving them tools and providing them with a plan that they could walk through to actually impact or respond appropriate to those opportunities and threats, they want to get started right away. And so we, between the briefings, we engage with the people who are on the briefings. Anybody who gets a spark inside of them and says, hey, wait a second, you know what, Doug, you were talking about us advancing parental authority as a principle at the upcoming policy convention of a political party. How do I get involved in that? I've got this tug on my heart right now. I think that's something I should be engaged with. Or maybe somebody wants to run as a candidate in a school board trustee election. We get that a lot, actually. We get people that are saying, hey, wait a second, maybe I'm supposed to be an elected representative myself, and maybe I should run, or maybe I just want to volunteer. So what we do between the briefings is those people that are mobilized, that are sparked or ignited by the conversations that we have on the briefing, they, in conversations with us, we personally coach them or help mobilize them with whatever resources we have. So we as an organization, the National Leadership Briefing and Canada Family Action, we have this massive resource partner list that we have, that if you have somebody who has a specific desire in one area, we know who's strong in that area. Let's say you have a desire to protect the vulnerable seniors in your church family from the risks of euthanasia, because that's a pretty serious risk right now. We're going to talk about that later. Is that you might have a heart to protect seniors, but you need to know more about euthanasia and the laws and how to protect people. So we have resource partners that work with us that understand the issue very well. And if we see an opportunity in the legislatures or in the House of Commons to add further protections to the vulnerable, we'll let you know about that too, because maybe you want to engage politically. But whatever that is, that all happens between the briefings because you have it on your heart and you respond. Now, you may not even get in touch with us at all. You might just go here, we'll bring a resource partner on and you'll get in touch with them directly and you'll begin the work. You'll just get started. Well, that's fine too. But whatever it is, we always say we're not here to hoard people. We're not here to gather a bunch of people around us, although we want you to show up every month for the briefing for 1 hour and bring as many friends as you can, because to share the opportunity over a broader number of people adds strength to our combined voice. So that we want you to do, but we don't necessarily need to keep you all in a citizen action pen, so as to speak, and just always move as a board. You can go out there and activate yourself where God wants you to be. We always want to serve people in the places they're called to be, because that's where their anointing, their covering, their protection, all of their community is. So wherever you feel God wants you to be, stay there. Come to the briefing once a month, join us for an hour, and then go back into your community with what it is you've gathered up. But when we have those opportunities again to come together and speak with a unified voice, capitalize on those as well. So that's been the strategy. It's been very passive. We've tried to keep every briefing very tame and relaxed. We don't get up in your face or your grill, as they say. We always keep it very friendly, because we want you to have the confidence that you're not going to be going out and inviting people to join you and come with you to the briefing, rallying around the things that we believe in, and then being surprised by all of a sudden, well, Doug's way different now than he was last briefing. Wow, he's like gone right off the handles, or right off the rails. So it's been very consistent. Our temperament, it's been very predictable over the course of the 4 years. And so when I take a look at the road ahead, and I see the changes that are coming at us on the National Leadership Briefing, when I see the things that are coming at us as society, as families, and as the church, I say, wait a second, we think we got to adjust our program a bit here. I want to come on the briefing and I want to make sure that you're really clear on the transition that we're about to make, so that you can have confidence that you know what's coming, so you can continue to stay connected to us. Well, let me tell you a little bit about, I'm going to illustrate one of the changes that I'm talking about that has forced us to make a change in our own approach here on the briefing. As you see right here over my shoulder here, you see a template that's available on our website. We call it one of our Sphere Authority training templates. There's 2 of them actually, and what the circles themselves depict is they depict the spheres of authority, or the governments within our society. They're governments that, if all of them are working together and operating within their appropriate sphere of authority up to the jurisdictional limit of their authority, which is identified by the black line around each circle, for example. So you have the sphere of authority, or the area of responsibility within the circle, and then the sphere of authority, or the jurisdictional limit of the authority, is the outside of the circle. Then you can see that if we all work together and we all do what, as individuals, what we're supposed to do, and if families do what they're called to do, and churches provide that service, and the marketplace is free to operate as they're intended to, if we're all working together as governments, individual governments, and respect each other's divisions of these authorities, or respect each other's jurisdictional limits, then we've got a very, very well high functioning society, and things are working out well. And then what we do, though, is in this system that we're in Canada, is that as individuals, we get together every single election time at all levels of government, and we transfer temporarily, we lend our authority to civil governments. So there's an election coming up, all the individuals get together, we lend our authority to civil government, and we give civil government specific tasks to perform in the form of a mandate for us. That's what the intention is. However, one of the changes that has occurred, and by the way, there's a really in-depth video that's on our website called the Sphere Authority Training Video. It's on the NLB Essentials web page on the website. I'm going to put that in the post-briefing notes today so you can have a look at it. It goes into more detail about how these jurisdictions work together. But what we've seen happening here with civil government in particular here in Canada at various levels, not just the federal level, but also at the provincial and at the municipal level and in our school boards, is our civil governments have taken the authority that we've lent to them. They've used the authority to create laws and policies and circumstances where they're able to hoard authority. So they actually hoard and amass more authority, and then they begin to operate outside of the jurisdictional limits of that authority that they're supposed to have. So civil government, you see that circle right there. If civil government grows and expands and infringes or imposes itself upon the rights of the individual, or the rights of the family, or the rights of the church, or imposes itself on the marketplace with regulation, then what you see happening is you see the power of government growing and growing and mutating to a point where they become dominant and act in a tyrannical way in the lives of all of the citizens around them. And that's really what's happened here in Canada. in a big way since 2015. I mean, it's been a transition that started several years even before that, where government has expanded and begun to cross over into areas where it was never intended to operate. If you take a look at the provincial governments from 10 and 15 years ago, they began to really impose themselves in the sphere of education into the lives of the family. So you saw civil government reach into the family and start deciding what it was that was appropriate to teach children, even if it was counter or contradictory to what parents wanted to teach their children. Civil governments proceeded and went and did that through school boards and through activist legislation at the provincial level. You saw the rights of individuals and in churches and the marketplace most recently during the lockdowns. You're starting to see civil government start to act not only in a tyrannical way, but in a very vicious and aggressive way that is showing us the direction that they're moving. They're moving us in Canada now to a place where civil government is going to be the place where we go for everything. Now, we are a country, as an example, with socialized medicine. So we're used to seeing government engaged in things like medical decisions. We're used to seeing how inefficient they are, as a matter of fact, when they do engage in things like this. But now they're expanding with the plan, I believe, and what many of the people that we follow and connect with believe is working towards the end game of the government becoming all powerful in all areas of our lives. And of course, that is a very dangerous thing. If you look at other governments in the world and you see how they operate and the way that the governments have acted in a tyrannical way in the beginning and then grown themselves, mutated, expanded out beyond their jurisdictional limits of authority, that usually you end up in a dictatorship or some sort of a totalitarian Marxist regime, and it is not good for the people. It's certainly not good for free thinking, free enterprise, free marketplace people, and people that want to have all of the things, the freedoms that we enjoy here in Canada. So this is why, as this threat, which I'm going to call it a threat, of civil government grows in our midst, we need to adjust our plan to acknowledge that change and make sure that we are countering it in an appropriate way. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to become a all-out rebellion and it's just going to be light your hair on fire, run down Main Street. I'm not talking about that. But what I am talking about is that you're likely going to see a difference in tone. You're going to see a difference in perhaps the things that we focus on. You're going to see a difference in me being a lot more direct, perhaps, with people sooner, because there's a need to do this quickly. What we like to do on the National Leadership Briefing in the past has always been, we respect that somebody could be new to the briefing. So if they're new to the briefing, we don't want to pile stuff on them too quickly because we don't want them to get overwhelmed. Well, just simply because we may not have the luxury of a lot of time to deal with some of these tyrannical moves of government, we may have to move quicker when somebody comes new on the briefing. Now, so you might think, Doug, that's pretty shocking. That's pretty quick, that you're moving kind of fast. You might start thinking that, but I want you to know the reason we're doing it is because we're forced to do it, because the rate of change, the speed of the things coming at us and the changes are so negative and so detrimental to our way of life. We need to adjust to that level. Now, I'm never going to stop being consistent, though. I'm never going to stop with the smile on my face is never going to disappear. I'm never going to get angry. You're not going to see any of that. All of those emotional things. No, we actually work a plan here in the National Leadership Briefing. We think strategically and we live tactically. So we're always on the plan. And the plan is so effective that we don't need to fire it up with a bunch of emotions. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about tone changes and speed and pace changes, but things that need to happen quicker might be shocking to some of you. So please think about that. Now, don't hesitate. Don't wait for me to show you what this new tone is, because basically you're getting it kind of today anyway, the beginning of it. Here we are in the war room. We're actually probably going to be in the war room from now on. We need to be thinking that we're mobile in case bill changes and things happening in legislation. If there's any attempt to shut us down, we're going to make sure that we're mobile all the time. We've always got the ability to get the war room up and running and operate from wherever. So this is important. This is important for you to know, but don't hesitate. Don't wait to continue to invite people. As a matter of fact, now is the time to gather more of us together. Now is the time for you to get on the phone and say, you know what? This is it, man. It's go time. It is go time. And yeah, there's going to be some use of military style language. And yeah, we are going to be talking about discipline a little bit more. And we're going to be getting right into like how we can build faster, how we can grow greater. But again, this is not going to be presented in a way that's going to be inoffensive to anybody. It just might be a little bit more challenging. And if you assure the people that you know that this is not for our bad, I'm not here trying to make things worse. I'm trying to help. And we are here definitely to try to give you the information you need at the local level so that you can make the best decisions for you, for your family, for your church family, and for anybody who you care about, for the vulnerable people in your community. I want to make sure that you've got access to monthly information that is going to be helpful for what's happening right now in front of you. And of course, give you those opportunities for us to continue to speak with a unified voice to where we can have impact nationally when we come together, or regionally, whatever the issue is. So that's what all I want to talk about there for now. For now, go to the National Leadership Briefing website. Again, I'll put it in the post notes, nlbcanada.ca. For now, make sure you've got the NLB Essential videos under your belt. Make sure you know the 4-pillar story, the story about where these principles came from, because you're going to need to communicate them to some degree with some level of efficiency if you want to be effective in sharing the vision of us all coming together. Or you can just share the videos themselves. I mean, the videos are in such a way you can click the link and just share them with someone else and go, hey, Bob, what do you think about this? Or, hey, Bob, you got an hour once a month? I think if we all come together, we can really make a difference. And there's a whole bunch of other people that are willing to do something right now, because that's what we're doing. We're doing something about all of these things. That's why we get together. Ultimately, remember I told you that we become catalyzed here and we mobilize between briefings. So let me leave it at that for now. I don't want to belabor it too much, but please don't wait to bring your community to the National Leadership Briefing, because we are in need of quickening the pace. All right. Let me take a quick break here and remind ourselves of the vulnerable that live among us in our communities. And then when we come back, I'm going to tell you and share with you some of the things that I believe that I'm hearing in not necessarily just the temporal realm, but perhaps like I'm just in my prayer time and the things that I'm just sensing as well. I would just want to give you a few things that I think are important for us to keep in mind on the immediate road ahead, things you're going to need to know to navigate as the intensity of change comes upon us on the road ahead. Thanks so much for your time. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
We will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors. You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada. So we stand united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.
Okay, well, let's continue on. Thanks so much for your attention to this point. So on the road ahead, in our world here on the National Leadership Briefing, it would be so easy. It would be so easy if we just looked out onto the political and governmental landscape, for example, and with the knowledge and experience that we have, not just my own experience, but the people that advise me and that we are connected with. It would be easy just to reach out into the temporal, onto the landscape itself, in the physical landscape of politics, and to look at all of the rules and the levers that are pulled to accomplish our political objectives. Because believe me, within arm's reach or a phone call away, we have some of the most brilliant political tacticians in Canada available to us. However, the reality is that as people of faith, that we're far more advantaged by in our Christian belief that we remove ourselves from that and call upon the Lord and say, Father, show us, help us, lead us, reveal to us, and keep us pulling the right levers. There's far more competence and quality in the counsel that we can get from Holy Spirit, for example, as Christians, than even some of the top advisors. But I want to share with you some of the observations that I have seen myself, the things that I'm getting, not just from the temporal realm, but also from the spirit realm. I want to what's coming to me in my prayer time, and I want to share that with you now, because this is a key component of the National Leadership Briefing from now on. So this is not, I'm not speaking into everybody's life assuming that I know where everybody's at and that it counts the same for everybody or it should be received. It's just that this is what the Lord is saying to me about everybody's lane right now. So the first thing is that there's a humility, I believe, that needs to be over all of us as we move forward. I believe that it's important that if there's anything that we're dragging along the road with us right now, that maybe it's a lack of repentance in a certain area, or a lack of forgiveness, or maybe it's offense, or whatever it is. Maybe you've got a bias, for example, as to one political party or another that is impacting the way you see the person who is loved by God. Maybe you don't like liberal MPs or the prime minister or whatever it is. I think it's really important that we operate humbly and in love and mercy and grace, and we really try to see everyone as God sees them. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we do need to continue to pray and think strategically. And I mentioned this before, but you need to live tactically. And what that means is that we need to continue to live with a plan in place that we're constantly focusing on executing. Now is not the time to be without a plan. I really believe that in Canada, that if the intensity of change comes at us, especially from the perspective of a mutating, enlarging, tyrannical civil government, if you don't want to be out there just making it up as you go along. So make sure that you're working a plan that advances the kingdom, not personal agendas or anything, but advances the kingdom wherever you are, and also secures the ground you're occupying. So if you get ground or gain ground, that you secure it and occupy it. So now's not the time to foxhole, I call it. I mean, there's a point where in battle where you dig your hole and you get in it and you stay in it. Now is not that time to do that. Now is the time to move forward. If you think that you can just stay in one place and not move forward and just hold the ground you've got and just kind of ride out the wave, it doesn't work that way. It certainly doesn't work that way in the environment that we're in now. You are losing ground if the government decides that they want to remove privileges, rights, finances, anything that you consider to be a store of wealth. I believe is at risk, whether it's your actual the money you have in the bank, It could be that. It could be the church you go to every Sunday. It could be a physical thing. It could be your freedom to move, your freedom of mobility, or the freedom of speech. But whatever you think you're just going to hold on to, it's at risk of still being taken away. And of course, if you want to be focused on something in the future and be intentional about the things that you do identify as your primary concerns, I urge you, please look to the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars, I believe, are not just 4 things that the church told me 4 or 5 years ago to focus on, and it just turns out that that's important. No, I think what's happened is that the National Leadership Briefing 4 pillars are actually the key battlegrounds. So on the road ahead, if you think about the first pillar, I believe that the thing that is going to be under the most serious attack on the road ahead, the thing that you can pray and think strategically about, is the authority of parents to raise their children the way they want. I believe that the second pillar, your right of belief and freedom of religion, I believe not only is it going to be under siege, but that you can work a plan, again, in your prayer life and in the temporal, you can work a plan to help preserve that and give you the freedom to share the gospel with other people, whatever it is that you want to do. I'm just saying, focus on the things that are important. Like we talked just this morning before I came on, we talked about the importance of not only looking around you, but inventorying, actually documenting the vulnerable people that live among you in your own church family or your community, and make sure you know who they are and where their vulnerabilities are, and know what they're vulnerable to. Because if you take a look at the threats on the road ahead, like for example, the threat of euthanasia and the expansion of euthanasia in Canada, to somebody who's homeless or mentally ill right now, they're vulnerable to that. So it's important that you do that. Another thing is that you need to be open on the road ahead. And I'm talking to myself. This is why we're doing what we're doing, especially on this point here. You need to be open to accept that we may need new tools. We may not even have the tool dies to make the new tools. We might have to forge the dies that make the tools that we're going to need on the road ahead. So we need to be open to receive that and to hear from the Lord. Let the Lord lead on that as to what it is we're going to need, but it may be something that is foreign and odd in our hands, like a new tone or tenor on the National Leadership Briefing, like a new approach, a new war room, a new language, whatever it is. But you need to actually be open to that transition of maybe you need a new ministry in your church. And we're going to talk about that on the last segment today. So be open to receive new tools. And then finally, be open to forge new relationships, because what you're going to find on this road ahead is that there's going to be an emphasis on how to divide us by those who do not believe in the same things you and I do. There's going to be a concerted effort or a focused effort. They are going to be working a plan to divide us. And so our counter move is to ensure that anything that is dividing us, we are praying and working against. We're praying in the opposite spirit, that we're praying in unity, that we're coming together regularly on the National Leadership Briefing, that our relationships with our church families are strong, that are within our own individual families and within our community. If you don't have a relationship with your local city councilor or school board trustee, and you have kids in your family and that's on your heart, don't just assume that relationship as it sits is going to be fine. No, you need to be intentional about stepping out and actually forging those relationships, not to correct or to discipline or to slam your fist on the table when it comes to elected representatives, but to build a relationship where you can open a line of communication to perhaps even bless, or to get into relationship to really just make sure that the lines of communication are open, so that if something happens on the road ahead that you need to talk to that person about, you have access and you can have a healthy and strong conversation with them about that. Now, there may be a time in the future, but don't lead there might be a time in the future where you've got to go and say, look, I totally disagree with the way you voted on that, or hey, what are you trying to do with the school board vote and all that. But you gotta go in with the right heart initially, with a very open, love, merciful, blessing spirit, and share that, and really care about the person. That's going to open up the door for you. Okay, that's about all I wanted. Maybe review that again a little bit later on, because all of these things that I'm talking about here are things that I think you're gonna, if you would look back this a year from now, you're gonna go, wow, did I ever need strong relationships in my community, with my community and my family? Did I ever need, because they were tested over the course of the year. Did I ever need to struggle, or to know that I needed these new tools? Like maybe it's a new ministry in your church, like I say. If it is, maybe you'll find that out down the road. But I really believe that the Lord is saying to us in this realm, especially when it comes to civil government and to the political realm, we need these things in our lives. So we're going to leave it there, and we're going to move on to the next segment here, because I have the pleasure of introducing you to somebody who is incredibly wise and has an awful lot to offer. And I believe that he is going to be a fantastic new resource partner of the National Leadership Briefing on the road ahead. So stand by, be right back after this quick video, and I'll introduce you. Well, let's not waste any time in introducing one of our new resource partners here on the National Leadership Briefing. Looking forward to sharing him and his very, very vast knowledge with you all. Well, thank you so much, Professor Ian Provan, for joining us today.
Well, I'm glad to be here, Doug. I'm a great fan of the briefing and a regular viewer, so happy to be doing something with you.
For those of you who don't know who Professor Ian Provan is Professor Provan was with Regent College for 25 years, recently retired. I mean, we're talking as recently as December 31st, 2022, after 25 years at the college.
Yep, no, that's absolutely right. December 31st. So this is the beginning of a very new phase of existence for me.
The reason why I wanted to bring you here today and to have you share today is because you are focused on a couple of things that I think are really key for the people that we serve to understand on the road ahead. And you've got an exciting project to talk about, and you've also got a new website and a way of keeping in touch. We'll get to all that. But what do you think that was some of the things that we have that we really need to understand and focus on and perhaps address on the road ahead?
I would say there's two main things on my mind, Doug, at the moment. The first has to do just with the basic thing about the authority of Scripture and how we read Scripture. It seems to me that we know kind of that, you know, the Scriptures are important, but it seems to me that we are under such pressure from the culture to say that we know things by other means. For example, by looking deep within ourselves instead. This is the ultimate cultural authority at the moment. I discover things by looking inside myself. So the place of the Bible in the life of the church is a very important thing that I think we have to really bear down on. And then related to that, the massive question of the moment, I think, in our culture: what is a human being? What is a person? People often seem to regard this as a kind of obvious thing that there's no point in talking about, but actually that question, what is a human being, is a very contested question, and there's nothing obvious about it. There's all sorts of ideas, and they come from somewhere, and most of them at the moment don't come from the Scriptures. So those are the two things, and they're related to each other, obviously.
I saw that on the materials that I received from you. What is a human being? And again, when you mentioned that in relationship to how it is that we read scripture, one of the things that I realized that you said was, I remember you said was that reading the Bible, first of all, literally is the way to do it. If you don't mind, that's not how you put it, but also in the context of the stories that you're reading them in within the Bible, but also within the context of the whole Bible itself, from the beginning of the Old Testament to the end of the New Testament, and that if that's our source, if that's the source for affirming what is a human being, or confirming what is a human being, that's a pretty big pretty big body of work to carve through. So you've actually developed or are given over your life now in retirement. It's not even really retirement. Sorry for saying that. I know
Not
you're not
really,
retired.
no.
You're retired from the college,
Right.
but you've given your life over now to helping people to understand and grapple with that question of what is a human being in relation to the Bible, the whole Bible itself.
That's
Fair?
exactly right. To me, this is the great need of the hour. And there's all sorts of people doing fantastic work, of course, in all sorts of areas of the church. Each of us has to try and find our lane, I think. What is it that we can contribute or should contribute? And so what I want to help with is the underpinnings, the fundamentals, the kind of underlying issue of humanness, which I think lots of things that appear to be unrelated and just coming at us from all over the place are actually connected to each other by governing ideas of what a human being is. And I would like to make Christians more conscious of that, bring it up for reflection, understand the implications, and to have good answers to give to other people when they are pressed on these things. In many ways, Doug, I think we're at the point now of needing a new reformation. I actually think that we're at a crisis moment. This is our crisis question, and we need to do well in wrestling with this question.
I totally agree. In our walk here at the National Leadership Briefing, we operate to a great degree in the political and governmental realm, for example, and there's a tremendous amount of chaos, as I think that's a word that you use as well, in that there's so many things that are coming at us at all times, and our attention is split between, as you mentioned before, euthanasia, abortion. We've got new things coming at us, new legislation in those areas. There's even the issue that we're talking about today as well, on another segment about the issue of human composting. There's actually now 5 states in the United States who have actually passed laws that provide for humans' bodies to be composted. It's easy to lose the firmness of the foundation under us and find ourselves running to and fro between all of these issues, trying to grapple with them. And so you have a project that you've launched to help people that you brought to my attention last week. This is what I want to share with people, is that tell me about the Cuckoos Consultancy and your website. Please feel free to give some detail of your website, because it's very good.
Sure. Well, I was searching for a picture that would perhaps communicate better than words even. And your listeners may or may not know that the European cuckoo is a very interesting bird. It doesn't have its own nest. It leaves its eggs in another bird's nest. The cuckoo, when it hatches, kicks all the eggs and the chicks out of that nest. The parent doesn't realize it's not its own bird. They feed it, and it grows to 3 times the size sometimes of these birds and takes over the nest. And it seems to me that bad ideas about humanness, wrong ideas about humanness in the church are a bit like a cuckoo. If you don't address them, you don't even notice they're not part of the family, they will take over and they will do damage. So that's the background to the Cuckoos Consultancy. I would like people to, I'd like to help people recognize the cuckoos, deal with the cuckoos. And I've set up this consultancy just as a focal point for making myself available to churches, organizations who would like help in processing all of that. That's what the Cuckoo's Consultancy is. It's a
So
dangerous title because it makes you think I'm cuckoo, but I just think the image is very helpful. So, well, thank you. I really appreciate the chance to share. Obviously, I think that what we're talking about is really important. And the thing about so many of these other ideas about humanness is they're actually quite bad ideas.
mm,
And people are intimidated by them because they don't really know what to do with them, as it were. And I think once you begin to explain why they're obviously bad ideas, that people get more relaxed about being a Christian and holding to a Christian position, because it's not just a matter of gritting your teeth and holding on. You begin to understand that God's revelation actually is true and good.
mm.
And it has a substance to it that these other ideas do not have. So that's what I'm going to be trying, I hope, to help people to do with however long the Lord gives me to do it.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that's a long time. So now I want to make sure that people have a way of connecting with you. We've got your website that we can provide, the website address for people in the post-briefing notes today. You also have a contact point that we can share for keeping in touch with you on an email newsletter list or an email list. Is that correct?
It is, yes, on the publications page, sorry, pardon me, on the Cuckoo's Consultancy page of my website, there's a button that you just press if you would like me to keep in touch from time to time. I won't be bombarding people, but every few months I'll probably send an update. And if you press that button, you will create an email with a subject line that you just press send on, and that's all you have to do. And this means that, for example, when my new book comes out, which is entitled, unsurprisingly, Cuckoos in Our Nest, Truth and Lies About Being Human, which should be in the fall sometime. So among other things, I'll be able to tell you when that book is available.
Fantastic. Okay. And so we'll make sure that's included as well. And there's a lot of other things, a lot of books you've written as well that'll be listed on the website as well. Thank you so much for your time today, Professor Provan. I appreciate everything you've done at Regent College, and what I'm looking forward to seeing you do here in Canada, because I think it's much needed right now in our nation.
Thanks very much, Doug. Appreciate being on.
Okay, so we're on the home stretch now, but that was a brand new resource partner for us here on the National Leadership Briefing. You and I can call upon Professor Provan. He's got some fantastic information on his website. Check it out. There's videos that you can review of some of the work that he's done so far, and I believe there's going to be great value for you on the road ahead. But I also told you that I was going to remind you, as our last segment, of an existing resource partner that we have. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start with you watching this quick video clip. And as you listen to this person speaking in this video clip, this is a member of Parliament who's speaking at a gathering. And just listen to what he's talking about and take it in. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to share with you the details of the frame or the meeting that he's in, and how you can experience these same kinds of conversations in the future. So just have this watch of this video clip, and I'll be right back to explain.
And when I got elected and I started thinking about some of the debates we were having, and just trying to put some of these pieces together over my family history, it became clear to me that you have this trajectory in history of Christians and others of similar convictions who are standing for a kind of humanism rooted in faith. That is a belief that human dignity is inherent. That for us, we see the image of God in every person, right? But there have been allies maybe who are outside of our faith tradition who don't frame it exactly the same way, but still believe that there is an inherent worth, dignity, and value in every person, regardless of life opportunities, regardless of gender, regardless of marriage prospects, regardless of religious or ethnic identity, regardless of personal circumstances or suffering. And then you can see, at different times in history, there have been challenges to this idea of inherent human dignity. There have been different voices who have said, if you are weak, if you are old, if you are very young, if you are not yet born, if you are of this particular skin tone, if you are Jewish, if you are a woman, whatever it is, then you are not as human as everybody else.
Okay, well, some of you may have recognized the person in that video was actually a member of parliament from our own House of Commons. And the subject matter, I'm sure you'll agree, even from just the small piece that you saw there, is very intriguing. It's something that is exactly what Professor Proven was talking about, the kinds of conversations we should be having. But that conversation, I wanted to tell you, was happening within a citizen action group ministry meeting within a church here in Canada. And the church itself was actually the church that has offered to help other churches start their citizen action group ministry. So I wanted to bring that to your attention because we have existing resource partners that are standing by that have said that if you're a church out there, or if you're a pastor who wants to find out more about citizen action group ministries and how to get them started and how they got them started at their church, there is one that is agreed to work with us and work with you and help you in any way that they can. They have a very successful ministry going. They have regular meetings. As a matter of fact, I was a speaker at the November meeting, and I came to speak at the church. They also had this member of parliament that came in December, and then we also have another meeting that's scheduled in January, where in January, John Carpe of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is going to come in, and they've agreed. They said you can actually zoom in on the meeting and watch the meeting from your own church or from your own office if you want to check it out. So I just wanted to remind you that we've got these challenges that are existing and that we're facing out there. And there are some people that are doing some real cool things out there. And we always want to be there at the National Leadership Briefing. When we see somebody doing something very well, we want to be able to share that with other people. So this is one very key element of what I believe you're going to need on the road ahead in your churches, the citizen action group ministry to support the pastor. And there's a church out there and people who are willing to jump in and help you set one up. So I'm going to include some information for you on that in the post-briefing notes today. And I'm hoping that you take advantage of this offer, because it is incredible that they would do all the work, and you can just click a couple of buttons and you can join in and you can see some great people and learn a ton and support your pastor, and all sorts of good things come out of it. So anyway, look to the post-briefing notes today on that. Now, until next time, the next National Leadership Briefing in February, we are going to be getting together next month. Until next time, I want you to know that as much change as there's going to be, there's still going to be an awful lot of great reasons to bring people to the next briefing. So please, I encourage you, bring people to the next briefing. Make sure that we grow our influence by growing our numbers, and let's continue to advance the Christian principles that undergird the four pillars into society, culture, politics, and government. Thank you so much for your time today. Until we meet next time, please know that I'll continue to pray for you, for your family, and for our great nation of Canada. Bye for now.
Once every year, the 11th month, on the 11th day at the 11th hour, we stand in unity to commemorate the end of World War I and to honor the great sacrifice of those who fought to preserve our freedoms. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row. Oh Canada, are you still a country worth dying for? Do we honor our fallen heroes? What were their hopes, dreams, and aspirations? Did they believe that we should be free to raise our children the way we want? Did they give their lives to defend our right of belief and freedom of religion? Did they consider Canada to be a place that would protect the citizens, especially the vulnerable? Was freedom truly worth dying for? That we should not be enslaved by massive debt heaped upon our children? Yes, these freedoms were worth dying for. Today, we continue to honor those who serve our country, lest we forget and fall victim to a tyranny that is eager to rise once again. Yesterday's freedoms were worth dying for. Do we now call them privileges only for them to be taken away? Oh Canada, what is freedom worth today? lest we forget and no longer stand on guard. Do we wear poppy while paving a road of oppression right through Flanders fields? No. We wear poppy because we remember them. We stand with their brothers and sisters in arms, and we honor them by preserving the freedoms that they fought to preserve. World War I was deemed the war to end all wars, but we know this was not the last of wars. To this day, brave men and women take a stand, and we stand with them. We stand on guard with those who choose to sacrifice their well-being to preserve our freedoms. We don't forget why we wear poppy while we're wearing a poppy. We remember. Come on, Canada, now is the time more than ever. Stand up and wear your poppy proud, lest we forget.